Going to be talking to us about the rise of humans and how to outsmart the big deluge.
Thanks, Matt. How you doing, everybody? God, no, good. Oh, God, bloody hell, we're awake in this side of the audience. It's going to be great. Please stay with me. I'm going to need you later on. Hi, my name's Dave. I work for a company you may well have heard of. Please understand, I have a comedy job title because I speak for the humans. I work for a company, hell, I work for an industry who loves to talk to you about the technology and the products that we make. We love talking about that stuff. But what we don't do enough of for my money is not talk about the technology, but talk about the human beings that use it. And my job is essentially to project out into the future to try and understand how will human beings want to live, work, and play. Because I think if we know what the humans are going to do, then we can be a lot more mindful about the kind of technology they're going to require. So understand then, at a certain level, my job is essentially about the future of humanity, right? And I figured if I'm going to have a job about the future of humanity, I demand a job title with a certain degree of pomposity. I think you'll see I've achieved that. I set out on a journey about 6 years ago because I was worried about where we were headed with technology. Not so much the technology per se, but the way in which we chose to use it, or we choose to use it. I wrote a book called Business Reimagined, which is pretty much about how the way we work today, the business practices we have, the things that we do with technology, they're based on things that go back a long, long time. And actually, my view is that the way we work today doesn't work because we use technology in the wrong way. I followed that up a couple of years ago with a book called The Rise of the Humans, which is essentially about our personal relationship with technology and how that prevents us going forward. It's also about a world of what AI is going to bring us. Now, there are two things you need to know about my books. Number one, I'm a cheap date, right? So that's why I'm here. So if you're interested in the books, if you have a Kindle, you can download them for free from Amazon. If you don't have a Kindle, tweet me and I will send you a download code. The second thing about the book, and this is always a bit tough for me to admit in public, right? But there was a point in my past where I was a bit hard up for money, and I had to do some things that I'm not terribly proud of today. Look, I was a management consultant, okay? As a result of being a management consultant, you will find no answers in these books, right? Because I was a good consultant. My books, everything I do is intended to be a provocation. If I have made you think slightly differently about how you use technology or where technology is going, I will have done my job. But really what I want to focus on today is how far the world has come and where we're going and how different the world that we're going into is going to be from anything we've seen before. And I want to talk to you about just the pace at which everything is changing around us. And this is the best slide I could find to show you the pace of change that we live in today. Does anyone know what kind of curve this is? It's an exponential curve. Excellent. This particular chart shows the number of mentions of the phrase exponential growth over the last 6 decades. Right? I can think of no better way to articulate our situation than this. But we still walk around and we talk about digital this and digital that and IT this, and I think those days are over. Talking about digital today, to me, is like talking about breathing. You don't need to tell me to do it. I kind of remember. It's just what I do normally, naturally. And I want to give you a couple of examples, a couple of exhibits in the defense of a position I'd like to say, which is to move on from beyond digital. The first example is the latest Mary Meeker statistics about digital adoption in our society. I don't need to tell you anymore that people use technology. Do you know anybody between the age of 8 and 80 who does not use technology in one shape or form at work or outside of work? My guess is that there will be very few of you, if any at all. Now, I'm not saying that there aren't people in our society who are disconnected. And there are people in our society who are disconnected not through choice, but through circumstance. And this is wrong and we must fix this. But broadly speaking, we all, as citizens of the developed world, are connected and using technology. We can move on from that. The second argument I will make about the abolition of the word digital is this product, the iPotty. If we live in a society where this product is feasible, I am telling you now, we are done with digital. Now listen, I have a kid, I have been through potty training, I've been through that process, and there was a point in that process where I would have considered buying one of these. But this to me is just one of those signals that says, we get this stuff, it adds value to our lives, it can do things differently, let's stop treating it as something special. Now please understand, these are two comedic ways of making my point. I want you to consider a far more serious point of where we are. Which is, I think, and the computer scientists amongst us think, that we're about to enter the third computer age. Now, the first computer age was a world of analog computers. This was Charles Babbage's world in the mid-19th century. This is a world of gears and machines, his analytical engine. This was a thing that he could only design, he could never actually build. It took a science museum until 2006 to actually physically complete his design. You guys are all familiar with the second computer age. This is a world of microprocessors. It's the phones in your pocket, the laptops on your desk. And it's a world of technology that has brought so much to us, and yet we continue to work in our organizations exactly as if we were Victorians. We swarm to be inside the physical infrastructure of work, our business processes, the way we structure our organization, the hierarchy of the organization. These were all things that were forged by our Victorian forebears in the fires of the Industrial Revolution. All we have chosen to do with technology is to make those old working practices, those old ways of working, a bit quicker or a bit cheaper. This is not the gift of technology, and it's certainly not where we're going in the third computer age. Because the third computer age is a world of artificial intelligence. It's a world of machine learning fueled by lots and lots of data. And there are two principles about the third computer age that fundamentally change what we will do with technology. And the first principle is about the kind of services that we can build. AI essentially learns from us. We don't have to tell it what to do. And because it learns from us, we can build things that previously were impossible to do, or certainly very difficult. Here's a great example. You can try this at home, folks. You can do this in the comfort of your own homes. This is using the power of machine learning and artificial intelligence to provide real-time speech-to-speech language translation. We've been doing it for a few years at Microsoft. You can try it today. It's a public beta on Skype. We demonstrated it 3 years ago. I had a gentleman speaking German connected to a lady speaking English. It's done via Skype. It's powered by Bing. Gentleman speaks German. Lady hears English. Lady speaks English. Gentleman hears German. Real time. No human being involved. Just some amazing algorithms doing some pretty incredible work. Now, I need everybody in our society to think about the transformational nature of this kind of stuff, because it's going to change our world. It's going to change not just the way we communicate with technology, it's going to change the way we communicate with each other. I would argue in the fullness of time, AI will even cause us to challenge what we think it is to be human. I think about this stuff all the time. I think about it in the context of my son. He's 10 years old. On the basis of this technology, do I bother to get my son to learn a foreign language at school? Because by the time he enters his world of work, it will be a redundant skill. Yeah. No, I get that's provocative. I get there were lots of reasons why we learn foreign languages, and you know what, my son will learn 1 or 2 languages at school, just like everybody else. But as a result of this amazing technology, he will be able to travel the world, communicating with locals as if he were a local, speaking another 152 different languages. It's going to fundamentally change his cultural experience, but it's also going to change his job prospects too. This is happening today, and it has massive ramifications for our future. We have to start to learn, we have to start to change how we use this technology to deliver real advantage. Now, to understand how it works, we have to get into this first principle that makes the third computer age special, which is the difference between teaching and learning. So today's computers, I have to teach, right? I have to give them explicit instructions, line by line, code by code. If I want to get a computer to walk through that door at the back of this auditorium, I have to tell it how far the door is from where the computer is. I have to tell it to walk towards the door. I have to tell it that that door you have to push, not pull, and you push it and you walk through. I don't have to tell you humans to do that. You innately know what the door is, and you know, and you go through and you walk through it. It's the same with AI. If I want to train AI to walk through the door, I don't tell it. I show it millions of videos of people walking through the door, and it learns. And this fundamental difference between learning and teaching is absolutely crucial to the basis of AI. Here's an example. This is something you can try for yourselves. You've already done it by now, right? This is a great example. This comes from some proper grown-up academic research from Cambridge University, and basically shows if you speak English, as long as I keep the first and last characters of the word in the right place, I can mix up all of the other characters, I can even misspell words, and you will still be able to read the text. Can you read the text? Yeah, of course you can. The reason I love this, there's 2 reasons that I love this. Number one is it shows you how learning is fundamentally contradictory to the way that we think that we learn, right? When we're at school and we're taught languages, we're taught the rules of language, we're taught the logic of language, we're taught things like I before E except after C. But what they don't teach us is that there are 923 exceptions to the I before rule. There are more exceptions to the I before E rule than there are to the bloody rule itself. Language isn't logical, it doesn't follow rules, it follows patterns. And we innately know this as human beings, because from the day you learn to read until the day you die, you will create, curate, and tend to your own personal pattern of language. Every time you read something, you're making your own personal pattern of language slightly better. It's just how algorithms work. And when your brain gets presented with something as ambiguous as this, it doesn't call on the rules, it doesn't call on the logic, it calls on your personal pattern of language, and it uses that to assemble the words. Now, the second reason I love this example is it shows you the limitation of machine learning and AI, because they're only as good as the patterns that they've been provided with. What do you think happens when I show this to someone who's just beginning to learn to speak English? Or if I'd shown it to my son, I don't know, about maybe 6 or 7 years ago, when he was just forming his own language skills? Well, they can't read it because they've not established enough of the pattern. And this is a limitation of AI, and this is why for the foreseeable future we're not entering a world where the robots will take our jobs and the algorithms will answer our email and we'll sit on our fat backsides and do nothing for the rest of our lives. So that's the first principle, the first fundamental difference of the third computer age. The second fundamental principle, and there are only two, is in a world of AI and machine learning, we move away from a world of binary. We move away from a world of ones or zeros, or yeses or nos. This is not black and white in the AI world. This is a probabilistic world. The answer is always maybe. When you receive an answer from a piece of AI, a search engine is a great example, what you're seeing is not a perfect answer. You're seeing the most likely answer in the least amount of time. We're confident that it's the right answer, but we're not 100% sure. This sort of fundamentally changes how we choose to use technology, more specifically, what we can use it for. And if you combine these two things together, you get to this wonderful place where we start to erode the boundary of what humans can do and what machines can do. This is a project that's available today. If you're in London and you have some time, go to the Tate and you'll see this. It's an exhibit you can walk around. You can also try it online. And what the Tate do every year, they have this wonderful thing called the IK Prize. And the IK Prize is basically them challenging the world of science and technology to do something meaningful for the world of art. Now this year's winners were a startup from Italy who used some of Microsoft's technology to provide a really innovative approach to solving one of the Tate's biggest problems. Because the Tate have a big problem, it's their archive. And in their archive is some 50 to 70,000 images. And the problem when you've got 50 to 70,000 images is you can't show all of those images at once. There is no single curator inside the Tate that knows all about every single one of those images. And as a result, a great majority of the incredible bounty that the Tate has to offer lies undiscovered, hidden in the basement of the organization. So what the researchers wanted to do, what the project wanted to do, they wanted to surface that, and they wanted to surface that in an innovative way. So what they did is they took the image on the left, and this image is part of the Reuters live photo stream. So Reuters is a news agency, has photographers all around the world taking photos every day of things that are happening around the world that then get published. As a media publisher, you can subscribe to them, you can use them in your publications. And what they wanted to do is they wanted to take those images and see if they could match them to images from the Tate's archive. And in order to do this, we used AI, but crucially, we used a human part of AI. So on one level, we did some fairly basic things that you would understand. Of course, I know lots about this photo. I know where it was taken. I know what it's about. I know which part of the world it was in, who the photographer was. And similarly for the paintings, I pretty much know who painted it, when it was painted, and a description of the scene. So you can do some basic comparison. But the AI lets us get 2 steps closer. The first step it lets us to do is I can start to analyze the composition of the picture. I can say, what are the colors being used? What's the color palette there? What are the angles in the diagram? This whole sense of the composition, but best of all, the second thing, I can start to inject some humanity into it. Because if there are human beings in the picture, I can tell you what gender they are. I can tell you what age they are. I can even tell you what emotional state they're in. And I can use that information, again, against the Tate's archive and start to surface new artwork that people haven't yet seen, curated in an entirely different way. And I love this project for 2 reasons. Number one, I love the fact that it takes us across the line. This is dealing with human emotions. This is a machine interpreting human emotion. And that's pretty interesting or scary, depending on your perspective. And then the second thing is understanding the point of this. The point of this is not to replace a human curator. The point of this is to enable an audience to discover more art than they could do before. It's simply a way of surfacing all of the magnificence in the Tate's archives. But as we get further and further into a world of AI, we've got to start to understand more and more about how AI is created and some of the implications of the process in which AI is created. In a world where the algorithms learn rather than they're taught, they are learning from us humans. And the problem with us humans is we are fundamentally flawed. It's one of our best attributes. It's one of the things that uniquely makes us human. And we have to start to be mindful of how our role, all of our role, in actually placing the answers that we see in the algorithms. Because going forward, more and more of everything we do will have an impact on the things that we choose to do, the images we see, the places we go. For example, when you see an advert today in your search engine, you have had a part to play in the placement of that advert. Things that you've searched for in the past, topics that you're interested in, were all implied in the placement of that ad. It gets deeper. Because the more we use AI, if you have a smartphone and you use any kind of predictive text on that smartphone, that is an algorithm that is unique to you. Think of a phrase that you and only you will say repeatedly, start to type it into your predictive text smartphone, and you'll be amazed that you will get suggestions that only you will see. You could type the phrase in my phone, and you won't see that on mine because I don't say those words. You are creating a reflection of yourself in that algorithm. And we have to think about these things because these algorithms are getting deeper and deeper into our lives. My 10-year-old son, I think it's a reasonable proposition to say he may choose his lifelong partner on the basis of an algorithmic recommendation, on a reflection of who he is as a human being, on what he has done, the things that he has looked for, the behavior that he has. So I think it's time that we started to take control, to be responsible for that reflection. We can choose to lie back and let the reflection be whatever it wants to be, or we can take some power back. And this is where I get a bit overly paternalistic, so please forgive me for this. But I think this is time for us to be really reflective. We have to become digital parents. The algorithms that we create, we have a part in creating as humans, we have a part to play in that. You know, just in the same way about what kind of skills, what kind of person do I want my son to be? I have a part to play in shaping him. We have the same thing with the algorithms we use. Now look, I work for a technology company that makes the algorithms. I am not for a minute suggesting I am placing all of the responsibility with you. I have to do my part, right? I have to make sure the service is good and responsible and delivers real tangible value to us as humans. But I want you to be engaged in that debate too. I want you to take accountability for what you see. But there are other challenges with how we create algorithms, and the algorithms are based on patterns, and the patterns are based on human experience. And the problem with human experience is we are fundamentally biased as humans. I have conscious bias, I have subconscious bias. And if we get to a place where we're making important decisions on the basis of the outcome of an algorithm, then actually we should know a bit more about the bias of the people that created the algorithm. Now, I can think of no easy way of making this as an example, so I've come up with a silly way of making this as an example, but it kind of makes my point. Now, I was born in England. I am also Canadian, so I spend a lot of time in North America. And one of the things that has occurred to me, that as an Englishman, I actually quite like my tea. Do we have any other tea lovers in the room? Okay, so I have a very specific algorithm for how I make tea, right? Like many of you, right? There's a warm pot, there's tea bags in the pot, there is boiling water that scorches the tea bags, it's left to steep for a few minutes, and then it gets poured into a warm mug with a splash of milk. That's my algorithm for making tea. My North American algorithm for making tea, or the one I experience in North America, is that there is a cup with lukewarm water and a tea bag and some milk, and there's your cup of tea, right? Not on my bloody watch, right? Never going to happen. Now, if I'm in a position to be consuming the product of that algorithm, as an Englishman, someone who cares about tea, I'd quite like to know who wrote the algorithm that's going to give me my cup of tea. Because if it's been written by a North American, as much as I love my North American cousins, I don't want it, I'll have a coffee, thanks very much. If it's written by somebody like me, I will go for the cup of tea. So please, again, really stupid example, but then project that into all of the algorithms that we use every day, and we'll go on to use more and more in our personal lives. My son choosing his lifelong partner. We need to understand about bias. The best answer that we have to date about how we deal with the issue of bias is this beautiful thing called diversity. And if we make sure that the teams of people who are building the algorithms are diverse, right? And by diversity, I mean across the spectrum. I mean race, I mean gender, I mean disability, I mean mental ability, the whole ball of wax. If we do this, then we minimize the risk of the algorithms being sent off in one direction by the humans that create them. And then the final challenge is really understanding about what we do with the information that the algorithm chooses to show us. And we've already seen this. We see this play out quite often in the world of search, and I would argue search is kind of at the vanguard of artificial intelligence in our society. And I used to work for our search engine, Bing, and we used to see this from time to time, and there are a couple of examples I'll give you that really sort of accentuate the point. The first was a couple of years ago, and one of the things that the search engines noticed is that, and this was Bing as well as Google, is that when you type in the words, how do I join, into the search engine, we were intrigued to find some of the suggestions that would pop up. Anyone want to take a guess at what the top was, actually the second suggestion was? Illuminati. Illuminati, good try.
The circus.
The circus. It was actually ISIS, right? Now what was interesting about that, some lovely people from the government came to see us as an industry and they said, you can't say that. Well, okay, here's the thing. This is how this works. The reason that that's there as the second suggestion is because there are thousands of people, if not millions of people, making that search query. Humans are putting that search query there. What you're seeing is a true reflection of our society. No filters. This is what it is. Now, we may choose to not like the answer, but the answer to fixing it is not to turn off search, it is to go and fix society. We had a very similar example, and if you'll forgive me again, this is a very dark example, but we had people who were searching on the term, how do I commit suicide painlessly? What's our responsibility to serve an answer to that question? It's a really interesting dilemma. Legally, I can serve an answer to that question. Morally, should I? And actually, we found the only way to answer that question is to get together. So the search engine got together, we worked with the government, we worked with NGOs, and we found out that the right answer is to serve the answer, but crucially, to serve an ad to the Samaritans at the top. Now, I make these examples not because search is stupid, but because search is at this pinnacle, at the vanguard of where we are as a society with AI. And the thing is, there are no clear answers. When we come across these problems, and we will come across more and more and more with more usage of AI, the only choice in providing the best answer is if we all come together. You cannot leave it to us to come up with the best answer, because that can't be right. You cannot leave it to the government to come up with the right answer, because that can't be right either. And equally, you cannot leave it to the NGOs. The only way this works is a four-party conversation. It's you, the consumers. It's us, the technology industry. It's the government, and then it's the subject matter experts in this field. It's the NGOs. This is the only way we get to the sunny uplands of our future with AI, and it requires a debate that has to start today. We cannot wait for this stuff to come. We have to start it. Now, I'm really pleased. As a UK citizen, the government this summer had an initiative to research into robotics and AI and the impacts in our society. They published this Wednesday a paper on this, and I encourage you to read it. I'll tweet the link to it later on so you can see it. It's the beginning of a debate, and I would beg you, in whatever organisation you're in, whatever role you're in, be a part of that debate, be a voice in that debate, because it's the only way we'll get this right. But ultimately, the thing that I want to fix is the way in which we're positioning this technology. And we do it by default, really, without thinking. Whenever I talk about AI, I guarantee you one person in the audience will be thinking about Stanley Kubrick, 2001: A Space. I'm sorry, Dave, I can't do that. Right? If I talk about robots, somebody will be thinking about Arnie and his titanium robot army. These are not helpful metaphors for us, because the world that we're going into is not an adversarial battle. It is not humans versus machines. The world that we should be going into is humans plus machines. What is it by combining the best of technological capability with the best of human ability that I can do that will help me achieve more than I could do on their own? This is the purpose of technology, and this is where we have to go. Because what we really want is we want the technology to help deliver us human outcomes. Now, we're on this journey, but we're not quite there. And this is a story that gives you an example of how far we've yet to come. This actually is a photo of my son. We're on a beach called Long Beach on the west coast of Vancouver Island, and we were there in April. But in order to get my family there, I had to jump through a whole series of technological hoops, right? Because we had that, and you will have had this experience, right? As a family, it's like, hey, let's go on holiday, where are we going to go? Well, there's an evening you'll spend in front of a search engine looking at destination websites, right? So now, oh no, we want to go to Vancouver. How are we going to get there? There's another evening you're going to spend searching on airlines and Skyscanner and trying to interpret all of the different rules and logic airlines have. Now you know where you're going to go, how you're going to get there, where you're going to stay. Another evening you're going to spend on hotel websites, Expedia. It goes on. Every one of those is a technological hoop I, the human, have to jump through. As a human being, all I want to bloody go on holiday, I want to take my family to Vancouver. In the future, and this is not a distant future, this is a future that many of us are working towards now, I just want to say to the system, do you know what? I want to take the family to Vancouver in April. You know who I am, you know who my family is, you know what Vancouver is, you know the airlines I like to fly, you know the hotels I like to stay in, the things I like to do. And on my behalf, you will go and negotiate with all of the service providers, and you will bring me back to human outcome, which is the whole itinerary. This is a world of bots. You know, that's the trendy word, isn't it? This is chatbots. Somebody must have talked about chatbots already today, right? This is where we're headed. But what I love about all of this is the human side of the equation, right? Because we humans, we evolve. And sometimes we evolve quickly and sometimes we evolve slowly. I think you can look at any point in our society and you can find something that's changing. And my favorite thing at the moment is this thing that's changing, or more specifically, it's how you respond to this scenario. I would bet has changed probably in the last 12 months. Because 12 months ago, you would have walked up in this scenario to the cashier and you would have put in your card and you would have typed in 4 digits. My bet is at some point in the last 12 months, your behavior changed. And instead of walking in and sliding your card in, you walk up and with a little flourish, like me, tap, and away you go. Now what I love about this is, if you look at the technology in the UK was launched in 2008, right? It's taken us till now to become comfortable with it. Now the test I'd love you to do, if you want to see how digitally engaged you are as an individual, I want you to try and check what's your reaction in the following scenario when you approach the cashier and just as you go to do that, the cashier goes, don't do contactless. Right? And if you're like me, and I'm betting some of you will be, your reaction is along the lines of, what? I used to, gee, this is the 24, oh God, now I'm going to have to type in 4, oh man, come on, that's terrible, right? This is how far we've come, right? Because 6 months ago, that wouldn't have happened. Who thinks 30 quid is not enough, right, as a limit? I'm thinking 50 at least, right? This is beautiful, because it shows we evolve. The reason this happened is because it's a good service. It adds value to our lives. It makes sense with what we're doing. And that fills me full of hope for the future, that as long as people like me in my industry, and you in your industry, as long as we get this service proposition right, as we add value to people, they're going to come along for the ride. And I think it gets better than that, right? I think it's like one of those crap desk toys that your dad used to have, or your weird uncle, you know, the Newton's cradle. And the thing about the Newton's cradle is it's just like our behavior. From time to time, I need to give you a gentle little nudge to show you that you could do something differently. It might be contactless payment, it might be e-commerce years ago, it might be the mobile phone. And I give you that gentle nudge, and after a little while, if it delivers value, you think, God, that's brilliant that is. I wonder what else I could do. And you start to look, and then you come running right back and you hit me on the back of the head and you say, I want more. But the crucial thing for that to happen, for you to make that work, is you've got to deliver value. Now I'm drastically searching in here for a piece of paper of an example of an industry that does not quite understand the concept of value. Right, does anybody know what this is? Right, it's a train ticket. More specifically, it's my train ticket, right? And because I'm a martyr for you, my audience, I went on a digital journey with this train ticket. I was sat at home last night and I'm thinking, I'm going to live the dream, right? I am not going to walk into the ticket office. I am going to buy my ticket online. I'm going to be a child of the digital society. Oh my God. I'm there, I'm sat at home in front of the telly, I reach forward, I grab my phone. I am so cool, my train line even has its own app. Yeah, baby. So I'm there, I'm thinking, this is brilliant, there's an app. I tell it where I am, I tell it where I'm going, I tell it when I'm traveling. 7 choices. Shit. Okay, they've all got different rules about what works and what doesn't. Oh God, I'll have the cheap one. So that's good. I give it my credit card details. I'm thinking, okay, that was slightly painful, but it'll be okay. I turn up at the station this morning, there I am, just like you. I've got my laptop bag, my coffee, my bacon sandwich. There's the ticket machine. This is looking great. I walk up to the ticket machine. It says, please insert the credit card that you paid with. Again? Okay, fine. I'll put my credit card in. Then it says, please type in the 6-digit code. Shit, 6-digit code. I haven't got the 6. Oh, it's an email. I'm there like some cack-handed circus juggler, my phone's on the floor, my bacon sandwiches falling over. I eventually get my ticket. Now, meanwhile, while this is going on, there is a lovely, lovely lady sat in the corner of the ticket office. All I have to do is I have to go up to her and say, excuse me, I'd quite like to travel to London this morning. Could you tell me which is the best ticket? She gives me the ticket. I give it my credit card once. I take the ticket and I'm on my merry way. The digital journey in train lines adds no value to my life. As a customer, I am never, ever going to do that again. And it's the same principle for all of the services that you will be operating in your organization. If you add no value, your customers will never, ever come back. So what can you do with all this stuff going forward? Well, look, I think in a world of chatbots, in a world of AI, one of the things we have to come to terms with is that human language is the new user interface. And when I say human language, I don't just mean speech, I don't mean voice recognition, I mean the whole ball of wax with human language. I mean gestures, I mean facial recognition, emotional recognition, body language, everything becomes up for grabs. So we've got to start talking that language. We've got to start, how are we going to use that kind of input from the human beings to drive experiences that delight people and add value to their lives? In order to do that, I've got to be fed with data. And data's a scary thing. For me to be successful in delivering the services I want to deliver with AI, the things that will change our lives, I need more of your data. And the only way you're going to give me more of your data is if 2 things happen. Number 1, I've got to make the value proposition worthwhile. I've got to make the service so good that you want to give me your data. And secondly, you're only going to give me your data if you trust me. So you have to trust me. In order for you to trust me, I'm going to have to be open and respectful, inclusive and respectful. So that means if you give me your data, you need to be able to see it. I need to be able to have a conversation with you that basically says, look, this is the bit of data from you that I want. Here's what we do with it. Here's what you get as a result. And if you don't want to share your data, that's cool too. I still want to do what I can for you. But giving people the power. We have a digital agent called Cortana. You may have seen it if you have Windows, Xbox. It's on iOS and Android, or coming to Android at some point. Cortana has this lovely principle called a notebook. And in her notebook, she records all of the assumptions that she's made about you based on your behavior, the reflection that you've given. And what I love about that is intended to avoid the scenarios that we have today. It's a bit like a few weeks ago, some of the plumbing went at home, and that's not a euphemism for anything. The plumbing went, and I'm there, and because I'm too tight to call a professional, right, I'm doing what a tight person does in that scenario, is I'm on a search engine, I'm looking for parts, I'm looking at videos, seeing how I'm going to fix it. And so I get the parts, I fix it, I'm feeling pretty cool. Why is it then, for the next 6 weeks after that, the internet now thinks I'm a plumber? Right, everywhere I go, there is adverts for bloody plumbing supplies. If you were really smart, you would know I'd fix the problem because I neither phoned a professional, nor did I continue to search for those parts. Cortana's notebook exists for those moments because I can go into that notebook and I say, look, I'm not a plumber, right? Don't show me that stuff. That helps to build trust. And when I can build trust, if you feel like I've got your back and the service is good, then we get to the place where we can be. But in building the services, we have to focus on this really important thing, which is we have to focus on what they enable the people to do, the consumer of the service to do. This is about the outcome of the service, not the process. And it kind of reminds me of a few days ago, I was in Cardiff of all places, and I'm going to some gig, it's early in the morning, and as I'm walking down the road, there's a guy, right, he's a council worker, he's in the middle of the road, high-vis jacket, and he's putting little dollops of white powder just right in the centre of the highway. And I'm a curious guy, right? I'm like, Jesus, what are you doing? And he said, oh, well, I'm putting down elephant powder. I'm like, elephant powder? What's that for? Well, it keeps the elephants away. And I'm like, but there aren't any elephants in Cardiff. And he just looked at me and smiled and go, I know, it's good stuff, isn't it? Right? I'm here all week. Our organisations, the way we treat our citizens, the things we do as consumers, is filled with elephant powder. Shit we do that is completely pointless, redundant, useless in a modern digital society. It's the processes that we do that nobody remembers why we do the process, they just know that we've always done it that way. This is the stuff that holds us back. This is the stuff that prevents us getting to a place where we can unleash the true power of technology. Our job as citizens, consumers, employees, businesses, startups, whatever you are, is to spot the elephant powder. And when you spot it, you rip it out, you burn it, get rid of it, destroy it. Because if you can do that, then you can start to free yourself to work in a way that becomes fit for purpose for what the technology has to offer. And then there's the challenge of how we think about the future. How do we think about where this stuff might go? What might be useful for the people we care about? Well, I think we have to think differently about our future. And the challenge we have as humans about the future is we tend to think the future is a straight line. We tend to think the future is a straight line extrapolated from where we stand today and from where we were yesterday. And it's always up and to the right. Well, the future's never a straight line, right? It bounces around like a pinball, and what we need to do is we need to anticipate the ricochet of that pinball. Here's an example of an industry that's struggling with that way of thinking. And I don't know if you know these, but these are the first autonomous vehicles that have been approved for use on UK highways. And what I love about this as an example is there's a beautiful paradox here, which is on one hand, the technology that exists for us to be able to make a driverless car is phenomenal. I mean, to live in a world where driverless cars could be a thing, I think is a fantastic achievement of science, technology, and commercial organizations. But the flip of it is if you look at some of the numbers, and not all of the numbers are the same, but I'll choose numbers that suit my argument, thanks very much. And the numbers that I used I wrote about this in book 2, was basically, it won't be until 2040 that 50% of all miles driven are driven autonomously, and that number doesn't hit 100% until the time we reach 2070. And my worry is that, do we seriously think that by the time we get to 2070, as a society, we will still think the best way to transport human beings around the local environment is inside a tin robotic box on wheels? That can't be the case. If Amazon is preparing to deliver packages to my house using an autonomous drone, or Domino's is preparing to deliver pizza to my house using autonomous drones, then am I not, as a human, just a bigger, albeit significantly heavier pizza or package? And the future of autonomous transportation for humans is as likely to be drones as it is car, but this industry struggles to see that because it is fixated on that straight line view of the future. So there are other challenges. For example, when we legislate and regulate using that straight line view of the future, do you know what the first law that the UK passed for the provision of autonomous vehicles on UK highways? Is that there must be, at all times, a human being inside the vehicle, I don't know, let's call them the driver, right? Whose job it is to monitor the controls. But the real issue of thinking about the future in a straight line is neither of these things. It's simply the opportunity cost of that thinking. Because for every second that an automotive engineer, in this example, thinks that the future of transportation is this straight line, nobody's building this. Or more specifically, if you think about human outcomes, nobody's building this. This is what we actually want as human beings. And so my call to you in your organization for the things that you do is get outside of that organization. Get outside of your industry. Connect the dots for yourself. Anticipate where your pinball is going to bounce. If you do that, you're not going to be right about the future, but you will be better prepared for it. And talking of being better prepared, the thing that I wanted to leave you with is I think we have to think very differently about the way we educate all of our society about the potential of technology. And what I worry about today is we live in a world where we tend to fixate on teaching, specifically kids, but not just kids. We teach them the tools. And the problem with teaching people tools is you're teaching people the tools that exist today. These will not be the tools that we will use in the future. And if I just pick on my own family history to give you an illustration of why this is the wrong thing to do. My grandparents went to school in the northwest of England and they had no electricity at school. My old man went to school in the Midlands and he went to a school in a world without computers. I went to university in a world without the World Wide Web. But it carries on, generation after generation. My son, he's going to school in a world without hovercars. And if all we do is we teach people the tools that are available today, we are never preparing our world, our society, for the future that we're going to head into. So instead, what I'd love us to do is I think we need to teach people some basic skills. The first thing is we need to teach people how to be safe. It's crucial that people, young and old, feel safe as they engage with technology. The flip side of that is we also need to teach human beings to not be, I was going to say arseholes, but I won't say arseholes, to not be idiots when they are online. We have a massive issue with how people turn up online versus how they turn up in person. It is damaging, it is hurtful, and actually it prevents progress. That's the safety message out of the way. Let's get into some other things. Number one is resetting our relationship with technology. You'll have heard lots of people talk about mindfulness, things like that. There is a simple skill we all need for our future, and it's simply this. It's being able to make a very simple choice at any moment of the day, which is based on what I'm about to do. Can technology help me, yes or no? And if the answer is yes, fill your boots, engage with technology. If the answer is no, turn it off, put it down, leave it alone. So if you're the sort of person that sits in a meeting with your laptop open taking notes, or you're in a meeting with other people who've got their laptops open taking notes, and we all know taking notes on your laptop in a meeting basically means catching up on your email or checking out Facebook, guess what? Don't have the meeting, it's a waste of everybody's time. Don't be the person in the cafe or the pub with your friends checking out your Facebook status. Technology offers you no value. We must teach our kids this principle so that they know that the technology is helpful when it's used properly. And actually it's in that usage of technology that we need to change the way people think. The most important skills people can have about leveraging technology are things like critical thinking. Classic example of this, my son came home from school this week and said, "Dad, my English teacher has told me that I cannot trust Wikipedia." And I said, "John, that's good advice. How do you know you can trust your English teacher?" Ooh. That sent him off into a recursive loop that he's not yet come out of, right? Fun you can have as a parent. So critical thinking is absolutely crucial. And actually this thing about curiosity, we have forgotten what to be curious means. And I know I generalize, but curiosity is a beautiful thing. It is the cure for boredom. It is the thing that makes us want to make things better, to find out how things work. Encouraging not just young minds, but young minds in particular to be curious is wonderful. And help people to dream big. In a connected world powered by AI, there are very few things that we cannot do. We will do amazing things in medicine with AI. We will do amazing things in our lives that will transform our education, our lifestyle, our cost of living, everything. And not just for us in the developed world, for the developing world too. And what I leave you with is this thought. In order to make this happen, the most crucial skill we have as human beings is creativity. Creativity is the one thing that for the foreseeable future we will not get an algorithm to do. And what I love to see is creativity is beginning to happen around us. I wanted to give you a demonstration of two things that I've been involved with. This is actually my son's homework. He got asked to make a board game based on the Egyptians. And because he's my son, okay, so there's a certain stereotype that you've already got in your mind, he said, "Dad, I'm not going to make a dice. It's an Egyptian game. I'm going to make a pyramid." So he made a pyramid. And what did he do with the pyramid? Is he stuck a microbit in front of it. And he coded the microbit so when I shake the pyramid, it generates a random number between 1 and 6. He's not a coder, he's not a computer scientist, he just wanted to be creative. Similarly, there's a project going on right now. There's a team of people called Bloodhound, and their challenge is to break the world land speed record next year. They're going for over 1,000 miles an hour. They have a brilliant initiative with UK schools. We're a part of it at Microsoft because we do a little bit of computing. And the project is to make a rocket car. The kids get sent a foam block. They have to carve the foam block into an aerodynamic shape. We shove a real rocket in the backside of it, right, which we set fire to, and it explodes. We stick a computer in the guts of the car that monitors its acceleration, how much it vibrates, and its speed. We're teaching kids about computer science, we're teaching kids about data science, we're teaching kids about physics, we're teaching them about engineering, but they don't know, because they're making a rocket car. And when you're 10 years old, male or female, making a rocket car is probably the coolest thing you will ever do at school. And what we need to do is we need more projects like that, because that's when you turn the lights on. That's where you create a society of people that are curious and eager for the future that we're going into through AI. So to summarize, please, we've got to understand technology's role in this. Technology is the least important thing that we're doing today. I'm not saying it's not important, it's the least important. And I can think of no better way of telling you this story than other to go to a phrase from Pablo Picasso, who brilliantly said, he was asked in the mid-60s in Paris, what do you think about computers? Now, why you asked Pablo Picasso about computers? I don't know, right? But his answer was wonderful because it's still true today. He simply said, computers are useless. All they can do is give me answers. What I need is something that can ask the right questions. And ladies and gentlemen, that somebody is you. That's your job. Whatever you do, whatever role you're in, whatever organization with, your job is to figure out what is the question we're actually trying to answer. Because when you know what that question is, when you're crisp and clear on that answer, then the technology can take over and we'll make short work of providing the results. To end, this is not my view of the future. We are not in the Terminator. The internet, believe it or not, is not Skynet. I have a simpler view of the future, and it's just this. I want a world where we as humans, we stand tall, high and proud, right up on the shoulders of the digital giants that we've created. We use technology to extend our reach as humans, not to replace us. And what I love about this is it's a debate we've been having for decades. I remember when I was a kid. When I was a kid and I was doing my maths exams at school, I was doing my maths O-level, and if you don't know what an O-level is, it's kind of like a GCSE but harder, right? It was a point in our lives where we were debating the role of pocket calculators in the education of our children. As a result of that societal debate, I did my maths O-level with a logbook and a slide rule. Now the funny thing is, I'm a better mathematician with a calculator than I am with a tabulated bit of paper and a slidey bit of plastic. Yes, I need to know the basics of arithmetic, but once I do, the technology lifts my capability. It's exactly the same principle today with all technologies, not just AI. And what we need to do is we need to make sure that everybody has the skills to be able to live up to the potential that technology has to offer. If we make sure that every person in our society has those skills, then and only then can we as humans rise up and live up to all the potential of technology. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much.
Thank you, Dave. Another great presentation. Okay, so we're on for a break. We've got a couple of minutes. Anyone has a question for Dave? One here? Yeah, probably got time to take one quick question.
Thank you very much, fascinating. I wanted to comment and also ask you about one of your recipes when you say switch off the technology, or ask yourself if it's serving you. If only it were that simple, right? The way technology is designed, it is designed to hook our brain, and probably people here have heard of the book by Muriel, it's called Hooked, How to Build Habit-Forming Products, right? So it's not about I decide now to leave my smartphone and not to go back to it. It doesn't work like that. So I'm curious about what's your view on the social responsibility of developers in terms of creating ethical products, and is there any policy Microsoft around that? And if yes, what is? If not, why not? Thank you.
So that's a great number of questions. So yeah, absolutely, I think developers need to be responsible for those experiences, and there is a conflict, right? Because if I do my job correctly, I am making things that you love to use. But I think there's a difference between loving to use something and being, I can't think of the right word, but using a service that I find it hard to leave, let's put it that way. Email's an example that's an easy one, right? Because I have lots of people who complain to me about how much email they have, and we're all in that world, right? And what I love about that debate is when I remind people that the reason that you have too many emails is not email's fault, right? You're part of the problem, because you're the bugger that's sending them along with your organization. So what's the different way that you could communicate to help you have less communication? There is a moral responsibility on developers. As to whether Microsoft has an explicit policy on this, I wouldn't be the right guy to ask. I can find out. I do know that we care about the long game. You know, as a company, we've been in business 40 years. We want to be in business for another 400 years. Who knows? And the only way we're going to do that is to be responsible in the technology that we make and how we get people to use that technology. So we want to encourage that kind of debate.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. Okay, so we're on for a short break now. We'll be right back in this room at 10.